Count to three.
Welcome to Doctor on Call with your host, DocGriffon. The doctor will be with you momentarily. Our guest this evening is Second Amendment advocate RTL Merc. Attention criminals and terrorists. The people on tonight's show have a legal permit to carry a handgun. The audience is also armed and prepared to defend themselves and others against acts of criminal violence. You have been warned. Doctor on Call wishes the best to our listeners in Chicago. Doc Griffin, paging Doc Griffin, you're needed in the OR stat. Please be careful with this one, Doc. He's an important patient.
I certainly will, and thank you very much, Nurse Aiden. Tonight, actually, this is an interview of opportunity for me. We had someone scheduled previously. That person turned into a total flake, but that gave me the opportunity to bring on an interesting. How can I describe this? I would say the person that I'm about to speak with, we had talked more than once, more than twice, and I found him fascinating, and he actually agreed to come onto the show and have a little sit-down convo. And for that, I'm certainly happy, and I would like to introduce my guest for this evening, RTL Merc.
Hey, how's it going, man? I'm actually quite boring, but I've done a few things that are noteworthy, but I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily an altogether important individual, just somebody who finds the time to volunteer, so that's all I really do.
Well, now, I find that most people are a contradiction on that. Usually when they say that they're boring, they tend to not be. So I will... I'll give my prognosis at the end of the show, but let's start out from the beginning. As a kid, where did you hang your hat?
Oh, I hung my hat at my parents' place. Starting way back when I was short. Oh,
I mean, were you more suburban? Rural?
Yeah, I lived in a rather suburban area. We were one of the first neighborhoods in my area. We lived on a creek. I'd pull crayfish out of it every year and sometimes eat them. But I usually try to take care of them and see if I can get them to survive past 3 or 4 days, which wasn't that easy. I provided food for them and whatnot.
Crayfish do not make good pets.
No, they really don't. They like to pinch and not so much bite, but pinch a lot.
Now, so were you raised down south? Because I know up here in the Midwest, there's not a lot of cray to be had.
Oh no. I was born and raised here in the great murder mitten of Michigan. I'm going to turn the lights down a bit, and probably.
And let me go ahead and do the thing that is. There we go.
Hey,
Gotcha.
that's the way I like it.
And like a boomer, I forgot to get rid of the side chat. So bye, side chat. There you go.
The woman has adjusted my chair. There we go. Much better.
And so, as a kid, I mean, what piqued your interest in things? I mean, the old tried and true question is, as a kid, what did you want to be? And a lot of people ended up answering firefighters or policemen. Did you have any bending one way or the other?
Well, when I grow up, I don't know what I want to be. But when I was growing up, before this, I had no clue what I really wanted to be. I had no real large aspirations. I just wanted to have fun with my life. I wanted to, I wanted to maybe be kind of adventurous. I wanted to be somebody who would spend time going out and exploring the unexplored. I wanted to be an adventurer, and there's not really much adventure to be had these days. I guess that kind of does tie in a little bit to what I'm currently engaged with. You know,
Would you
I'm involved in.
would you call your parents the adventurous sort who encouraged you?
Well, my mother, she was, oh geez, she was so she's a private healthcare nurse. She's a nurse who's on call who helps the sick and the elderly, and she mostly deals with paraplegics, quadriplegics, things like that. But when she was going through med school and whatnot, she was someone who she was like an ambulance technician, I want to say.
Okay.
Boy, she told me some horror stories about that. My father spent most of his life working for General Motors, as one does here in Michigan. He is about ready to retire at this point, but for the most part, growing up, I didn't really get to see my dad too much because he would work 60-hour work weeks at GM, and he built the house that I grew up in. Beautiful home, beautiful home. Everybody calls it the Castle House. We've got a turret and a little steeple thing on top there, and it's a nice place to live, especially since you got you look over and there's the creek in the backyard, apple tree right there, right off the deck. I don't know. I come from my immediate family. I come from hard workers, people who are very involved in their work. So
like blue collar, salt of the earth.
More or less, I wouldn't say blue collar, or kind of bluish, whitish, more or less. I grew up in the upper middle class area.
Kind of a cyan.
Yeah, it's kind of a cyan color. Yeah, why not?
And did your family ever do anything like anything outdoorsy, like camping trips, anything like that?
No, I get that. I get that from my mother's side of the family. Now, my family has a very rich history of military service. I've got an uncle on my mother's side who is in the United States Marine Corps, and boy, he'll never let you forget that. My grandfather was in the Army during World War II, just post Normandy. So he was doing a lot of the cleanup operations. He was a supply sergeant, staff sergeant.
I'm being told that we're getting a lot of freezing.
Oh, is that on my end or on your end?
YouTube was doing it to Joker this evening. So.
Okay. Yeah. Let me know. The internet's probably a buzz because everybody's trying to figure out the polling results, and me included. I voted yes on the legalization of marijuana for recreational purposes. So we're going to see how that works out. I have several friends of mine who are business owners who said that his insurance agent said that his insurance rates might go up by a whopping 35%.
Wow.
Yes, that's kind of sad if it passes and he gets screwed over, but I really don't know if that's going to be the case. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't think he's going to be selling cannabis at his shop. He is specifically a manufacturer and distributor of e-liquids for vaporizers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Funny thing to note. He's actually one of the members of my group, the militia that I'm currently.
You know what? I'm going to try and do this. I have never done this before. I'm going to try and see if I can drop down the optimization.
All right. Do you need me to go off camera?
No. We'll get it figured out.
Okay.
Right. But right now, apparently, the audio is still working, so that's a good thing.
Excellent. All right. Well, there's really, family life. I would say grandfather on my father's side, United States Navy during World War II as well. I have an uncle on my father's side who was Air Force. I heard he went to Minot, and I have actually a buddy of mine who's Air Force who was just here interviewing Aiden about her research on video game violence and psychology. So That's her wheelhouse. That's what her PhD is going to be about. You know. Anyway,
let's see here. Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm trying to figure out how to take care of that because the window's frozen. I tell you what, we'll do this for right now until we can get it back up. There we go. Let's see if that actually makes a change or if it's because the scroll is still running, but your picture was not. You were frozen in time.
As one does here. It is about to get quite cold.
Oh, and let me go ahead and just add a wrench. Daniel Russo, this is his first time in, so we will go ahead and get him wrenched out.
I may as well pull up the chat. I'm actually not viewing anything here. I can just pull this up here. Oh, that's her Twitter. Come on, wake up.
Yeah, Jack, that is my fault because I'm bobbing back and forth on the on my mic because I'm trying to fix what's going on. So that's all my blame. But yeah, I want to make sure that. Well, I don't know if I get this close, then I think I'm a little too close. And let's see. Yeah, the window capture is frozen. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I have the ability to do a reload off of the Google Hangouts. I don't think I can. Wait a minute. Let me try this. Okay. Let's see if this works.
Well, I just dropped off of the thingamajig there, so who knows?
Well, it is showing you. So let's see if it'll bounce back and forth between the twixt.
Between the twixt.
Between the twixt. So, well, let me ask this, since it's an intricate part of your life right now. When was the first time that you ever held a gun? At what age?
Approximately 14 years old. It was a 12-gauge shotgun. One moment, please. Yeah, I was out with a work friend of my father's, and I believe that they were doing some clay shooting. Now, my dad doesn't own. He only owned one rifle. It was like a 22 caliber. And his buddy owned like a whole bunch of guns, nowhere near as many as I do, but you know.
So the love of guns was not a family legacy then?
Oh no, the love of guns is actually it's actually two-part. Now, nobody in my immediate family served in the military. Nobody in my immediate family owned too many guns. My mother owned a 22 revolver. My father owned a 22 rifle. Those went respectively to my family on my mother's side for safekeeping while we were growing up. But yeah, that's really like how do I put this? The love of like military things and the reason I found it intriguing. It mostly came from my mother's side of the family, with my grandfather and my uncle being, Army and Marines, respectively. The whole aspect of civil service and civic nationalism, that's also something that I inherited from my mother's side of the family. But I found out recently that my uncle, who was Air Force on my mother's side, or no, my father's side, he is similar to me in the regards of voluntary civic service, civil service, preparedness, emergency preparedness, and things like that. He's been into the whole prepper thing, the whole
Well, and that's something that we can get into too, because there is not every prepper is militia, not every militia is prepper.
Right. You find people have Well, the whole prepper thing. There's a stigma attached to preppers
Yeah,
and
yeah, they
militia.
think they're nuts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now I have I wouldn't say unique perspective on this. I'm going to pull up something, a thingamajig. Where's my thingamajig? God, lady.
Are we
Got about
distracted? I think we both are.
she's got about 50 tabs opened here, and I just need a tab. I just need one tab, man, one tab. All right.
Well, you know, Aiden, she do like her research.
Jesus Christ, does she ever? She cites stuff in her sleep. I swear to God. All right.
Might want to keep a tape deck next to the bed just in case.
Oh, yeah. All right. So there is a perspective that exists about what makes a militia person. Then there's a legal definition as well. That's under Title 10 USC subsection 311, which is militia composition and classes, which was updated in effect January 4th of 1995. It states subsection 311, militia composition and classes, section A, the militia of the United States consists of all able-bodied males, at least.
Yep, we lost you. Wow. The tech is truly against us this evening. Merc, are you still there? Uh-oh. Well, I'll tell you what, let's fill in here real quick. We lost Merc off the call, so we'll get him back in. If you are interested in having a discussion or checking out any of his posts, Merc does not have a Twitter, or does not have a YouTube, but does have a Twitter, and you can hook up with him down in the descriptor there. Also, if you want any of my stuff, there's my Twitter, my Streamlabs, my Patreon, the TeePublic store that sells the very finest of bootleg Medicare merchandise. And of course, down here is our prescription for additional entertainment. And these are people that I like, although I don't know yet. Gadfly says he's gone. I might have to cross him off the list. But everybody else, I think, is still up and running and functioning, including somebody in our chat right now, the Cringe Factory. And you can always check them out. I am a fan of Wreckbot. No denying. And, of course, before us, the Killing Joke came on. And we're always happy to, not happy for the circumstances that brought him back, but happy that he is back. And we do all wish him well. Yeah, I don't know. Was this an Illuminati hit? I have no idea. Maybe there were too many tabs. I'm gonna go ahead and throw him a DM real quick, see if everything's alright. And hopefully it is. And that we have this brief moment. Let me just do this. I haven't done this in a while. Hello, Jack T. Ripper, Gulf City serial killer. Hello, Daniel Russo, and welcome. Hey, Sisyphus, thanks for joining us. And of course, welcome, Cringe Factory. Have a wrench. And technically, Cringe, if you want to start a new channel for your prepper friend and call it Dr. Prepper, he technically doesn't have to be a doctor, but if he doctors things, then he could be a Dr. Prepper. I think that counts. I would think so as well. That it. No, I did some reading up on the militia statutes, too. So I found some fascinating stuff. And let's see here. Wow. I am not getting a response. Something's going on. Hopefully he recognizes. Because sometimes with these chats, you know, you don't bother even looking at them. You're just going and talking because, you know, you see yourself. Well, I tell you what I'm going to do is tonight's beverage comes to us courtesy of Bonnie Rose Tennessee White Whiskey. And this is orange peel flavor. And I'm mixing it with Sprite. Oh,
where'd you lose me, boss? Where'd you lose me?
You just started with the 18 to 65.
1865?
18 to 65. Able-bodied males.
Holy shit, we lost a lot then. I've just been rambling to myself. I'm like, feel free to stop me if I keep going on. Oh, lordy. All right.
Well, there was a speculation that Aiden might have taken you down.
Oh, God. Well, you know, we'll just have to handle her, won't we?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's excusable, you know.
We'll fix that. We'll fix that.
Oh, my, you can't fix that because then you can't have any kids.
Touche. All right. Well, let's see. Where do I go? What do I do? I lost that link, didn't I? About a billion tabs here, aren't there? All right. Essentially, Title 10, USC 311, militia composition and classes in conjunction with the Second Amendment states that just about everybody should be armed. Everybody should be a volunteer. Everybody is everybody composes the militia. The whole and body of the people are the militia. So I'm going to make sure that I'm not losing this again. I'm going to put this in its own separate window right in front, right here.
Bookmark it with care.
Bookmarking with care.
Well, because and I know we're going to get into this just a little bit deeper, but was that something in your teenage years that inspired you? Because you have service time, correct?
Yeah, I served about a year and a half in the Army. I had injured myself, and this is during the Obama era, where just about everybody was getting the pink slip. So what they did was, after I injured myself, I was put on a no PT profile for a very long time. So I wasn't able to do my cardio, and I failed to run over and over and over again until they discharged me on.
And let me ask right up front, was there a need? Was there an importance to serve?
You know what? Sometimes I wonder. It's really odd, because one day on a lark, I just decided, you know what? Why don't I just join the Army? You know, I've got a family history of it. Why don't I do it myself? It was a goal for myself because at one point in my life, I used to weigh 350 pounds, right? I used to be a big boy, you know. I'm 6'7", but still 350 pounds is massive. So I got a job. It was physically strenuous, and I dropped 80 pounds, right? And I figured if I drop 40 more pounds, I can get down to a fighting weight for, you know, military service. So why not? Why not do that? So I remember the direct day, the exact day. It was October, I want to say 20th. Yeah, it was around, no. It was just before, it was like September 20th. Yeah, that's right. September 20th. I wake up in my parents' house. I had boomeranged from an apartment, which is actually surprisingly right across the lake from where I live now. I boomeranged from an apartment that I lived. And so I'd spent the next, 2 years. Yeah, 2 years at my parents' place. I woke up and there's just banging on my roof. Just banging. and I work the night shift. So these guys are working broad daylight. So, you know, it's about noonish. I'd only slept for about 2 hours, 3 hours. And I thought to myself, I need to get out of my parents' house. I need to go do something with my life. I'm sick of working at a freaking grocery store. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go join the army.
So it was more a way to get out, which, I mean, honestly, a lot of people do that. I mean, think of how many people join the military because of the movie Stripes.
Oh, I don't know about that. I never really, I had a passing interest in it. You know, I kind of like guns. I did gun rights activism very mildly before I was in the service. But I was in a relationship with a woman at the time, and things weren't going well with her. Drug abuse, shit like that. I'm like, you know what? I got to pick myself up. I got to go somewhere. I got to go do something with my life. So, you know, I talked with her and everything like that, and she promised she'd get off the drugs if I would, you know, if I'd stay with her when I went into the military. And so she did briefly, and I found out like maybe 2 weeks later she had relapsed in a really bad way. And I told her, you know, it's either going to be me or the drugs. And oh baby, it's going to be you. Of course it's going to be me. Yeah,
Yeah.
She lies to me. I find out she lied to me. She lied to my mother. She just talked a whole bunch of bullshit. And so I just went to her house. I didn't say a fucking word. I grabbed all of my shit and I just walked out and I said, we're done. That was ridiculous. And I find out like 3-4 years later she OD'd and fucking killed herself. So that's just, you know, I got stories. There's lots of that shit going on.
Yeah, but well, especially you're around the general area of the country that I'm in, and you know, a lot of people talk about illegal drugs. On our ballot, it was decriminalizing felony drugs down to misdemeanors, and legit, the first one that they mentioned was fentanyl.
Well, that's a bit scary shit to me. Fentanyl, just it's a hell of a tranquilizer. No, I mean, like she was a drug seeker. What she would do is she'd go to the doctor and complain of a bellyache, and they'd give her fucking opioids, and she would just fucking three knuckle shuffle them. And
oh yeah,
it's like, yeah.
The place where I live, we're number 3 in the state for opioid overdoses.
Oh yeah, that's essentially what happened. She OD'd on him, went into a coma, and they pulled the plug on her. So that was,
well,
you know, I've been through just a ton of really shitty relationships. Oh my God, you should have seen the last one I was in. I don't want to get into it too much, but my recent ex was, I would say, physically and sexually abusive, and it was just like, what the fuck, man? Like, I know you got needs, but goddamn.
You need to go over there and take care of yourself tonight.
Yeah.
Oh my.
So, it's funny. It's a long, weird, convoluted story. Like, I don't know if I want to get too much into it because it's kind of way off topic. I mean, most women that I want to go forward with dating, which is, thank God I've got this woman over here, but they need to have a strong sense of, you know, civic nationalism and civil service, you know. So
well, and it's funny because the lady that he's speaking of was the first guest that I technically interviewed for the Doctor on Call show.
That's right, and you actually did it while she was here.
Oh, was she there?
Yeah, she was here, and she was at the time with someone else. And that's a long story, but
that's a shitty story.
Yeah, well, she'd been a friend of mine for a while, and I was turning 30, and I figured, you know what, I'm going to go all out. I'm going to invite all my friends. I'm going to invite as many people as possible. I have a week-long kegger. I had another YouTuber over here as well, my buddy Near Edge. He's local to the area for now, but apparently he's going to be moving, which is unfortunate because I'm going to miss the shit out of him. But I had him over. I was going to have some other guys come out as well. I had, some of my militia guys came out, some of my old friends came out. All in all, we had like a house full of like 10 fucking people at the time. And while you were interviewing her, we were all downstairs in the basement, which is damn near soundproof because I've got the foam all around here and nice layer underneath here. So it's decent. I like it. I got a nice setup.
So, if there's a YouTuber you really have to disappear, then you have the appropriate place to take care of it.
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
But so you got out of the service earlier than you expected. Now,
much earlier. I had expected an 8-year contract initially. No, it wasn't 8 year. No, it was a 4-year contract. I signed a short contract. My original MOS, military occupational specialty, was supposed to be 35 whiskey, which is electronic warfare signals intelligence analyst. So that was like something that they do a baseline of, and then they find out, do you want to be a cryptologic linguist or do you want to be some other signals intelligence analyst? So I had attained a TS SCI security clearance on interim, which expired, unfortunately, in basic training. So I had to reclass to 89 Bravo ammunition specialist. So I became the schlepper for lots of ordnance. I got to play with high explosives, all that fun shit. So
now, did you ever have the chance to get deployed?
Unfortunately, not. I injured myself before I moved to my active unit, so I was stuck in TRADOC the entire fucking time. I made it out of basic training. I became permanent party over in Alabama, so that really sucked. I had actually toyed with the idea of getting back into the service, and right at the time where I'm just like, you know what, I'm going to do it, I got laid up again. In a bad way.
Yeah.
I developed sciatica to the point where I couldn't walk for a while. In fact, it comes and goes. Like every 9 months or so, I get put on my back, and I have to go through physical therapy every now and then, which is it sucks. I've gained like 40 pounds since I've got out of the service, which is shitty. I'm not fat, but I'm definitely not where I want to be.
Well, my uncle had the same problem. He was 6'6", and he had back problems all the time.
Oh, God. Well, I got another inch and probably a little bit more back problems. Plus a family history of the shit. Oh, my God. Let me tell you.
So now you've got this plan in your head before the injury. You're going to do a 4-year or an 8-year, and it cuts you short. And you're promptly mustered out.
Honorable discharge, thank God.
There you go. Oh, well,
so I am a veteran by the skin of my teeth.
well, it's funny. A buddy of mine was in the Navy for 6 years, and he had to get mustered out because he broke his neck. But they were on an aircraft carrier playing Nerf football. And and he slipped and hit his head on one of those anchor fastenings.
Oh God!
And broke one of his vertebrae. So that's okay.
I did severely injure. I had severe shin splints to the point where you could flex my bones in my leg, and fissures would appear. So yeah, that was rough. Nuclear medicine found that out. So
yeah, my uncle, who was 6'6", he broke his leg by sliding into second base. So I can understand that.
Well, yeah, when you're dealing with somebody my size, 240 pounds, fighting weight, going up and down, doing hill repeats, for miles, going up and down a hill, on the downward slope when you're running, every single time your foot fall, that's like a sledgehammer, man. That's just repetitive injury. Yep.
Yeah, like when I played football, because it was back in the days when I wasn't a hairy little boy, they taped down my shins just to make sure there wasn't any additional separation to them. So yeah, I understand that. But now what's intriguing me is you literally have you put a year in, so I'm thinking you were definitely early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got everything laid out before you, but you're looking back, and the plans that you have are basically ashes at this point. Uh,
Yeah, more or less. I mean, if I had been able to stay in, I probably would have gone career. I love the structure. I love the camaraderie. I loved my job. I loved doing everything that I did. It's a shame, but sometimes life doesn't work out the way you want it to. So
well,
you know,
and you're standing at the precipice, literally, of a new life. What gives you focus? What gives you direction once you get out?
oh, I became an alcoholic for the first 6 months.
Oh,
That was actually quite sad. I had fallen into old habits, uh, old social habits, shall I say, and I became an alcoholic on top of that. So I was in a very unhealthy place after I'd got out of the service. I was crushing like a 12 pack a day. As soon as I got home from work, just slamming it, and then I wasn't as severe as some of my other friends who had been terminated for either psychological reasons or for physical reasons. But because I know a guy who just went for a salad bowl of cocaine once he got discharged,
yeah.
and it's just what it is. I mean, shit. You know, civilian transition from military lifestyle is not easy for a lot of people. They do this thing called ACAP, I want to say, and it's just not. It doesn't work for a lot of people. It's really hard to reintegrate. I mean, I wasn't in for that long, but still, it was kind of hard for me because I had all these plans, and then I got out.
Well, and honestly, it's not a small club. I can say that my older brother, he was 82nd Airborne, and he did a 4-year turn, and decided that he was gonna. He almost went career, but then he met somebody and decided to have a family. But his transition was pretty rough too. It was it was the whole thing of how he explained it to me was the lack of order caused disorder, and that not like in jail, but being told when to rise and shine, when to work, when to eat, when to sleep. That to him was incredibly comforting because he knew when he got up, he would focus on the task at hand, and all the other little minutia was just already taken care of and already drilled out.
Right. Yeah. For me, growing up, I was diagnosed with ADD. I was very heavily medicated. I was on Ritalin and Adderall and all those other fun little pills to keep you from bouncing off the walls. And I remember in my teenage years, I became an absolute rageaholic because I had gone off my meds for a while. And but it was nowhere near as bad as it was when I was like in middle school. Middle school was really bad. If I missed a dose, I would fly into a rage. It was really kind of scary. I've had to get that under control, which I have. I've done rather well with that. It's surprising. You find your inner peace, doing your daily routine and whatnot. But yeah, when I went into the military, just finding all these, all the structure, where to go, what to do, when to do it, arriving in the right uniform, that really helped me find a focus, and I was taught all these principles, which I had already had before I joined. But it really fine tuned, my principles and my virtues and things like that. It really assisted in, me finding my head,
Well, yeah, there's quite a few people out there that say that the military is a bad moral compass, and I'm going from my brother's experience because we talked quite a bit, and he said he never felt safer, he never felt more focused, and he never felt like he had more of a purpose than he did when he was in the service. And
well, that's exactly it. I found a cause greater than myself. I attached myself to it. I had I made peace with. This is one of the things you have to do as soon as you get in is you have to write your will. You make peace with death very quickly. I figured if I'm going to die, it's better to die for a cause greater than yourself. That's serving your country.
Well, and I honestly don't think I'm talking out of school, but when he got out, he slid heavily into alcohol.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
that happens.
Yeah, he could drink a bar dry, and he just got focused. The Army actually offered him an opportunity to I don't know what be like one of the commanders for ROTC, the local college,
Okay.
and that kind of snapped him out of it because he was like, well, I can execute all this stuff that I actually learned in the military.
Right, and he'll be able to train the next generation, and that will sober you up because you want to set a good example. You want to set a good example for the next generation, and that's one of the things I've clung on to is I want to set a good example for people, and this is another reason why I find myself where I am today, being a member of this militia thing. I could talk about my gun rights activism too. But it's only just a single facet of what I do.
Well, I want to know what the tipping point was when you said, "Okay, it's time to put the alcohol down."
Ooh, well, that's actually hard because let me pull this up.
And by that I mean because you can still have the ability to drink, but when drinking becomes your primary goal, that's when life starts handing you trouble.
Oh yeah. One moment. Let me pull this back up because I am having just a wonderful issue with all this. All right. It was essentially for me December 14th, 2012. Everybody is very cognizant of the Sandy Hook shooting.
Yeah.
That was I had finally started to settle down a bit with the alcoholism. I decided, you know what? I'd really like something that would help me relieve stress. I'd like to get back into shooting. I miss shooting. I sold all my guns before I went into the military, except for one. I sold everything but an old beater Remington 870 shotgun from like the early 80s that I had picked up for $100 from somebody who was hard up for cash. So I picked that up, and I never got rid of it. I still got it sitting on the gun rack in the armory. I have an actual armory, like an entire room dedicated to the 40 plus guns I own. So
that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, I mean, it's a hobby. It's partially a hobby. I mean, the rifle at the bottom of this this rack here is the rifle that I commonly use in the militia because it's very simple. It's iron sights. I've put at least 15,000 rounds through it, if not more, maybe around actually closer to 20,000 rounds. I've put more rounds through my service rifle that I trained with, and it's easy. And I was thinking to myself, I really would like to get myself an AR-15 just so I can get back into the hobby, get back into shooting, whatnot. Then Sandy Hook occurred, and all hell broke loose with the executive orders on gun control, and that's when I really hit my activist phase of my life. That's when I became a massive gun rights activist. I started with street corner protests. There's a viral video out there of me with over 250,000, maybe 500,000 hits of me being engaged by law enforcement. They just drop by, see what we were up to. It was just me and two other guys just out in the street corner protesting, open carrying. That's where it started. That's where like I'd been talking to local politicians and my immediate people who I interact with every day about gun rights and everything, the importance of owning a gun. I had started, picking up the rhetoric and then just passing it on and, starting to learn how to do reasoned debate. with people on, use of force and things like that.
So now, how did you implement this publicly? Was there a group that you were a part of while you were doing the active rights, a lobby or anything?
No, not necessarily. I did a lot of organization of protests and engagements with politicians through Facebook mostly. It's really muddy now that I think about it, because I can't really pinpoint exactly everything. We did something called For Liberty Fridays, where we'd go down to the street corner and we'd open carry and we'd hold signs, and this is during like I want to say it was 2014 when that occurred. So it was like midterm elections. So we campaigned for people. I had briefly worked with Campaign for Liberty, very very briefly. Ran for office in 2016, but that had nothing really to do with any of that. Oh boy, when did I get into the militia? My God, it must have been 5 years ago. 2013. What else happened in 2013? Edward Snowden leaks.
So would you say that your advocacy led you to the militia?
Yes, it did. Absolutely. Because our president at the time, Barack Obama, he started implementing or attempted to implement several executive orders that would restrict our Second Amendment rights. That just didn't fly with me, because I understood, the importance of being armed. And a lot of the rhetoric coming from the left at the time was that anybody who owns a gun is, an evil baby killer. And I'm just like, and I heard the same shit when I was in the military. I was a baby killer, and I was, not fit for, being part of civilian life, and, all this other shit, calling me a murderer and, everything. It's like, I'm not some barbaric asshole. I don't just go out and, kill indiscriminately. It's not that simple. It's not that black and white where, you got evil bad man on one side and, virtuous fucking, paragon of everything that's good on the other side. It's shades of gray, and you're never going to have, it's never going to be, there's never going to be a complete balance of power. The one good thing that firearms do for us is, us as a society, is it equalizes these forces. Like, do you honestly think a woman who is 5'7", 100 pounds can defend herself against a man like me, who is literally a foot taller and 3 times that size, 280 pounds?
Yeah, maybe
it's an equalizer.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe if she had a Glock 9.
Yeah, if she had it, if a woman that size had a 9mm and just hit me 3 times with a center mass, I'd probably go down. I'm not saying that I would do that to somebody, but
Well, so yeah, let's. How important is the Second Amendment, not only to yourself, but to everyone else?
Oh boy. It is of the utmost import to be able to defend yourself. Let's not talk about society as a whole, but to be able to defend yourself effectively against any threat against your life, and where you have done nothing wrong and someone assaults you or attempts to, impose themselves upon you in a manner that isn't exactly lawful. You'd be able to, meet and mitigate these threats. I'm not going to say that firearms are a totem, because a lot of people do view firearms as a totem, which really pisses me off, because they don't seem to understand it. Just carrying a gun every day is not going to, protect you. But in the minds of other people, if you don't know who's carrying, and you got a lot of other people around who may or may not be carrying, are you really going to, are you really going to try to subvert the law? Are you really going to try to, roll somebody if that person might be carrying a gun?
Well,
Just having that right there is rather important.
it would be cause for pause. That's for sure.
Exactly. Oh yes. And you'll oftentimes find that the threat of something is more fearful. You find yourself more fearful of the threat of something than the actual thing itself. So
Well,
that's why.
and to expound just a little bit further, how important is it to, well, basically a federal republic?
Oh, it allows for the function of a federal republic. It allows for that function because not everybody is going to be civil. Not everybody is going to want to go along with, what is considered lawful. I mean, you look throughout history. A friend of mine was just giving me a little history lesson on the Danes and what the hell is it called? The Dane Geld, where you'd have Norsemen come in and ransack cities,
Yeah.
and they would just board their horses up in churches and shit. And these are just foreign invaders, and a lot of those yeomen, just and the peasants, they weren't armed, they weren't able to defend themselves against the marauding hordes. So that would if a threat comes from within, that's one thing. If a threat comes from without, it's another thing. But at the same time, you have elements from within that are still actively, they actively attempt to subvert, things that happen from within as well. So it allows for a smoother function of the way things are. Like it allows for accountability as well on both sides. You are, and this is something that's written in the is it Declaration of Independence, where they talk about altering and abolishing a form of government if it becomes if it becomes destructive to the ends of the people. I'd have to pull this shit up.
Well,
Ooh.
now my personal take as far as it goes is the one thing that I can't stand when I try to have a conversation with an anti-gun activist is when they say, well, we have to limit the amount of guns and we have to make things safe. And my first question to them is, do you think criminals actually follow laws? That's why they're called criminals in the first place.
Exactly.
And even if you ban every single damn gun, criminals will still have guns. So basically what you've done is disarm decent people.
Let's see. I really should have prepared for the show because I've got a list of common pipe gauges that coincide with barrel specifications of commonly available ammunition. You can make a pipe rifle or a pipe pistol very easily. Just go to Home Depot. It's not hard to make a gun.
Well, yeah. I mean, as kids, we used to make spud guns all the damn time.
I made a panty cannon. That was fun.
Wait a minute, a panty?
Oh yes.
You're gonna have
Victoria's Secret bought like a bunch of thongs for $10. We got like 20 thongs for $10. We wadded them up in some newspaper, and we got one of those spud guns. We crammed it down into there, and we shot like a load of fucking panties all over the street. That was nuts.
Now, what was the onus for picking panties as the ordinance?
For the lulz.
Oh yeah. Now
for the lulz.
Now, were they clean or were they worn?
Oh, they were clean.
See, it would have been more dangerous had they have been worn.
Well, they were worn later.
That's how you pick up girls on a Friday night. Shoot them with a panty cannon.
Shoot them with a panty cannon. Yeah, that's how you do it. Oh God, my younger years. Oh, I was a hellraiser, man. Holy shit. I forgot about all that shit.
Wow. I made sure that one of my grandfather's cliches never came true, where he said youth was wasted on the young. But then again, I was wasted most of the time, so.
I was doing a lot of crazy shit. I built a Tesla coil in my backyard. I would. Oh, I experimented with the anarchist cookbook. I know how to make chloroform. It's very easy. It's.
Oh yeah, I had the anarchist cookbook when I was younger. That thing was like, was like the Necronomicon to people, because they're like, oh, that's an evil book. It's horrible. Now
half that shit is so ridiculously out of date because it has old stuff like phone phreaking with phone booths and how to con people into giving them personal information. It's some of that stuff still works today, but there's with the advent of two-factor authentication these days, you can't really pose as an authority and expect to get shit fixed. It's
well, until the evil flood happened, I had one of the original improvised munitions manuals from the 60s.
Oh yeah, that's still relevant today. Actually, I have that book on my shelf downstairs. I have an entire study and a entire shelf that's just dedicated to survival manuals and old manuals from pre and post Nam era, and it's all stuff that I studied in the military. But it's what it is.
But yeah, I mean, I found that kind of reading fascinating, and we actually did build some ordnance from that thing, and damn, it was effective.
Oh yes. Oh geez, it's incredibly easy to build shape charges, and just I've experimented with some things. I can't really admit to maybe having the cops called on me for making napalm once or twice.
God, yeah, we did. We made the napalm. That was awesome. That stuff was fun, man. You'd sling that shit all over a field, but you had to make sure that it was, spring or summer, because if that field was dry, then that shit was going to go up.
Oh yeah, I did all this crazy shit way before I joined the military. I've calmed down quite a bit since I've been out, and I don't use my powers for evil.
Well, one of my favorite things to do. Do you remember the old cameras that had the flash cubes?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Those were the greatest munition that we ever found, because essentially what you do is you dip it in about a 1/4 inch of wax. You get it nice and waxed up, and if you accidentally drop it into a gas tank, the gas will eat the wax and it'll interact with the actual flash bulb.
Oh yeah, that'll blow the fuck out of it. Oh, you madman.
Well, I've seen stuff accidentally blow up before.
I have made shit accidentally blow up. One of the hats I wear is I'm a professional pyrotechnician. I haven't done it in a while, but I deal with show shells, stuff that goes up, for professional fireworks.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, ever laid a line before?
Oh yeah. Anyway, I remember sticking a 6-inch salute inside of one of those steel garbage cans. We only found shards of the garbage can afterwards.
Oh, God, that kind of shrapnel is dangerous.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. We accidentally stuck shrapnel into one of my buddy's headlights. That was that was ill-advised. Kids, don't play with high explosives if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah,
like me sometimes.
Yeah, I got the chance to go behind the scenes when they were setting up with the 4th of July, and I had minor electrician experience, and they were just like, "Yeah, man, you can hook some of this up," and I'm like, I'm not bonded or insured, guys. We don't care. Go for it.
Yeah, we most of the shows that I've worked are smaller shows, so we don't run electronic line, but we do series sometimes. We do series fuses, things like that. But they're all manual light. They're not electronic ignition. I mean, we have the capability of using electronic ignition, but just we don't. We just get road flares and we just light each individual gun off, and
Oh, okay, because these guys, they were all about electronic. Being able just to, and it was hooked into a laptop, and they'd hit a switch, drop the charge, and
yeah, then the show would automatically go off. Yeah, that's fun, but it's not as fun as manually lighting the guns, if you ask me. I mean, I love the aspect of getting up close and personal with each one of these tubes.
One of these, it could blow up on you, so there's a little adrenaline going.
Just a little bit. And plus, I love the smell. I love the smell. I love coming home just covered in powder, just ash, and freaking my face is all blacked out from everything. We wear face masks and safety goggles and ear protection, everything like that. But I come home smelling like sulfur, and it's just I love it.
Yeah, the coolest one that I've ever seen, they actually did a winter celebration, and it was over a frozen lake. And it was amazing just to watch the whole area light up because everything was covered in snow.
Speaking of that, when Aiden and I started dating, before we found out that we were a thing, really. I mean, this is post the breakup, the previous breakup, whatever. I went out and I took her out to the local lake here, and it was 4th of July. And I decided to do something that's not necessarily the most legal thing in the world, but I decided to get my drone up in the air. And I was taking videos, well above the detonation, shooting down, getting the camera angle to shoot down and see the reflection of the fireworks coming off the lake. And the lake was very placid at the time, so you could see some of you could see the reflections just beautifully. Every year we have a dueling firework show that goes off. I'm not attached to any of the companies that operate out here. I operate a bit north of here, but yeah, it's really quite astonishing. Just the angles I'm able to get with that thing. And it's just yeah, that's one of the ones. I know that's one of the things that you'd said that you wanted to talk to me about is like my work with the drone and everything. I bought the thing like 2 years ago.
Yeah, actually, that's what I was gonna say. Fly a drone around during a fireworks show.
Oh yeah, I got some really good footage of the fireworks. I wanted to get into content creation. I wanted to do this whole YouTube thing. I was inspired by some of the people in, the gun sphere of YouTube, the politics sphere, and I decided that I wanted to do something similar to that, but it didn't work out for me. I mean, like I'm seeing some of the drama in some of these communities right now, and it's just, GunTube went through a big fucking thing like a year and a half ago, and then we've got the drama that goes on right now in the political commentary sphere. And
well, what about the one guy? I think he's a German guy who made a video about how unsafe the bulletproof vests that or the stab-proof vests that
Jorg Sprave.
Yeah.
Yes. He runs a channel dedicated to projectile weapons that don't use powder. Essentially, it's a non-firearm projectile weapon channel. It's called the Slingshot channel, but he doesn't just do slingshots. He does air rifles and things like that. Yeah, the Wall Street Journal got on his ass, and said that it was a terrorist training video to teach people how to stab through a stab-proof vest. No, what he was doing is demonstrating that the stab-proof vests that they sell on eBay or Amazon aren't worth their shit.
Yeah,
that's all he was doing, because there had been a rash of stabbings in England.
Yeah, it was a complete PSA saying,
yes.
Saying, guys, you don't want these vests. Do not use these vests. This is why. And he basically gave them a visual. And
Right.
I think the bullshit about it is that the guy who did the story was the same guy who chuckled and cackled when he was able to sneak a knife aboard a plane.
Yes, yes, he was, and that's absolute insanity. It's double standards. It's failure to adhere to a set of morals. It's it's ridiculous. I don't understand how these people get away with talking out of one side of your mouth and doing something else, doing something to the contrary. It's something that drives me up a wall. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
because basically this guy was doing it as a lark, whereas that poor German guy was saying, guys, this is a serious problem.
yeah, it's well, it's also he also said that you shouldn't rely on a stab-proof vest or any kind of protective vest to save your life anyway. I mean, you're not going to be able to go around up armored all the time.
Yeah.
You should probably learn some self-defense. Don't be a hero. Step aside if something happens. Get out of there. Be able to provide medical assistance. That kind of shit. I believe that was one of the points of his videos. I might be confusing that portion with somebody else, but I do remember the York Spray video where he did stab through the quote unquote stab proof vest. They were using like a really low grade metal that was flimsy inside the vest, which you don't use metal in a stab proof vest. You use like Kevlar. You use Kevlar and Nomex and like a bunch of other woven fabrics.
Yeah, I was going to say a
That,
multi mesh
yeah,
to try and stop the blade, because that's what they were trying to figure out back in the Middle Ages.
right. Oh, I actually came across some research a while back. Did you know that at the end of the Iron Age is when with the advent of muskets, is when they actually developed full plate armor. And the breastplates of most full plate armor were able to take a musket ball.
Well, see, I was a fan of Deadliest Warrior,
Mm-hmm.
and they actually did a segment about musket balls against armor. And I tell you what, I mean, it's really geek. It's very niche, but Deadliest Warrior was fascinating just because of the fact that they went through not only showing how the ballistics work, but how all the different weapons worked and how powerful, how brutal they could be. It's just it was an amazing series that I don't think. Well, being on Spike, you're already doomed within two seasons. Nothing ever lasts.
Yeah.
Um, but I wanted to make sure since we're at the top of the hour, Merc will be taking your questions. So if you would please go ahead and start dropping them in the side chat there, and we'll answer them as they come in. You can find Merc on Twitter.
Kinda.
The link is down there.
I'm boring. I'll go shill my Twitter though. Let me log out of
Well,
ladies.
that's why I'm here to shill for those who can't or won't.
I am very boring on my Twitter.
Also, all my links are down there. If you guys like the show, if you're digging on it, if you want to throw some ducats, there's a Streamlabs and a Patreon, and of course, as I mentioned before, there's the prescription for additional entertainment. These are not necessarily people that you might enjoy, but if you like what I do, these are the people that I enjoy watching. So please feel free to drop in and take a look. If you've got some extra time, I know the kill stream doesn't exist on YouTube anymore, so that should free up 3 or 4 hours.
Everybody currently is streaming about the election results, and it's it's what it is. I know she's down in the basement right now. She recently had to set up her own PC finally uh, because she was having some issues with mine. We recently upgraded the hard drive on my PC. I'm running ridiculous rig. I want to show this to you. Like, this thing is probably, it's one of the most expensive investments I've ever made. This thing is running, dual 1080 Ti's with, Ryzen 7 1800X processor, freaking 2 terabyte SSD hard drive. I built this thing because I wanted to become a YouTuber and I wanted to do this whole YouTube thing. Like, I wanted to get into the, gun rights community and, give my say on it. So I built an entire broadcast studio, and it never took off because I saw the drama that was, happening in so many different communities over so many different, aspects. Like I said, GunTube, the commentary tube, everybody just, they're always at each other's throats. And I just want to work with people. I don't want to engage in, he said, she said bullshit. You should see the stuff that happened to, oh God, Dave Yeager. What the hell is his name? Yeager. Chuck Yeager?
I do not know.
James Yeager. That's right. James Yeager. Whole bunch of bullshit happened with his training courses and everything. Like, you find out that his training courses aren't up to snuff, and some of the instructors that were trained by him were like really ridiculous. Like, there was an incident that had occurred by James Yeager's training staff, right? One of the things that he will do is try to initiate you, or one of the things his instructor tries to do is initiate you into the whole everyday carry thing by saying, this is your Volvo. This gun is your daily carry. This is not meant to be pretty. It's not a range queen. This is something you're going to be carrying with you at all times. You're going to get nicks. You're going to get scuffs. This thing is not going to be a pretty gun. This is not something that you're going to take. You're supposed to take good care. You're supposed to do, your daily maintenance with it. But, you should expect nicks, scratches, bruises, whatever. So what he does, he takes one of his students' guns, improperly clears it, throws it on the ground, kicks it, starts scuffing it into the ground, and it goes off. Shoots the back of one of his students' cars.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, so there was a whole bunch of drama in the community that happened after that. He'd always been like kind of an asshole. That's fine. It takes a certain personality type to be that kind of instructor.
Well, yeah, but why didn't he pull the clip and empty the chamber?
He improperly cleared it. He thought that he got the round out, but he didn't.
But double check, for God's sake.
Oh yes, gun safety is. It's a must.
Lack of gun safety killed Brandon Lee.
Exactly. Now I'm a certified NRA RSO. I've been through an 8-hour training course. It's oddly enough, it's all stuff I've already known. They teach you how to clear jams. They teach you how to they teach you like how to respond to certain actions and activities on the firing line. Like, let's say somebody gets hit by backsplash. Call 911, get your med kit out, try to be able to, apply first aid, get certified in first aid, how to handle a squib load, how to handle jams, how to handle all that stuff. And I'm like, well, this is all stuff I've known. I own a gun with every single action that they teach you on. They got muzzle loaders, they got bolt actions, pump actions, semi-automatic, break action, single shot. There's just a ton of different types of actions that you have to be able to know how to clear. But along with that, they teach you, gun safety, range safety, and how to operate on an indoor range, because there's actually like a very different way of operating indoors rather than outdoors, and inspect your backstops and stuff like that. But it all boils down to level of competence and level of, your willingness to engage in safe handling practices. And some people aren't necessarily up to snuff on that. I can't say that I'm, 100% a saint when it comes to gun safety. I've had one close call that I can remember at least. But yeah, it's there's other stuff going on in GunTube right now with the NRA becoming, a bloated circle jerk of higher ups who are essentially just taking money for nothing. They're not the legislative force that they used to be. Uh,
Well,
NAGR and GRA are the two ones who are seeking currently to supplant their activities as far as being the major legislative force behind making sure that people are making sure that people have their gun rights at the end of the day.
well, and there's a lot of organizations that were started in good faith and have just been, like you said, become bloated miseries. Things like Greenpeace, United Way. These are just basic examples.
Yeah, UNESCO and all these other things. Like, yeah, they've become politicized, and yeah, the mission statement's great, but you fucked up. You've lost your way. And that's sadly what happened with the NRA. I am still a member of the NRA, but I'm not going to be renewing my membership to the NRA. I'm probably going to be going to GRA or GOA. Yeah, GOA. That's what it is, GOA.
What's the acronym?
Gun Owners of America.
Oh, okay. Now that one, honestly, I have not heard of, but I got my green card back in the 80s. That's when you only needed a 20-hour class to certify.
Right.
But then again, I was also certified with a PR-24. That's fucking useless.
PR-24?
Yeah. Nightstick that had the side handle on it.
Oh, yeah. Jeez.
Well, I did security work for a while. And it was kind of nice when you were in the realm of being a bouncer that technically you could carry if you really wanted to, but nobody ever wants to carry a gun into a bar. That's illegal.
Oh, actually, if you have a CPL in the state of Michigan, you're able to open carry just about anywhere that isn't posted. Like it's a the law will never tell you what you can do, right?
Yeah.
So there exists a legal loophole. Let me pull out nope, I don't even have my wallet on me. My wallet has my CPL in there. There are restricted areas that you are not allowed to concealed carry. However, if you do have a CPL, you are legally allowed to open carry in those locations if you have permission. It all depends. It all depends on each location, right? Like I'm able to if I wanted to, and I have never tested this. I don't intend on testing it. I could go to a bar open carrying. But I, again, don't intend on it. It's what it is. Also, private property trumps whatever, law it is. So if it's, if there's signage out front that says you can't carry a gun here, then obviously you can't open or concealed carry. So,
oh yeah, it is a big no-no. Only law enforcement on duty are allowed into drinking establishments with their weapons.
Oh yeah. Now I went to Milwaukee recently, where I went to go shoot my 50 cal with Sargon, and it's kind of funny. I looked up the laws, concealed carry, reciprocity, see if my license was valid over there. Now, I looked it up. And I'm like, okay, yes, it's valid. Now, where are the restricted areas? Where am I not allowed to carry my gun at? I couldn't find anything besides schools. I'm like,
okay.
I'm like, motherfucker, are you telling me I can carry my gun into a bar, concealed carry? So I looked into it, and I don't know if the legislation's changed. This was like 2 years ago, the first time, right? Now I intended on drinking, so there's obviously, in most states it's 0.02 BAC that you're allowed to carry your gun up to. I actually was drunk in a bar in Iowa. Not drunk, but I was below 0.08 in the state of Iowa, which 0.08, which is legal intoxication over in Iowa. You're allowed to carry your gun up to 0.08 over there. something I looked into. So I was drinking vodka at a Russian bar um, with my 40 cal strapped on my hip. That was nuts.
uh,
You know.
Now, while we're waiting for the questions to come in from the chat, um, let's get into it. Let's talk about the militia.
Yes, I never actually got around to that. Holy shit!
How? What attracted you to it? Was there uh, was there any point in your lobby advocacy that you thought, well, this isn't working out? I'm trying to find people of like mind, or were there completely different circumstances about how you happened upon the militia?
Well, in the state of Michigan, militia is it's a word that's commonly known. The Michigan militia is probably one of the most misunderstood, and B, widely heard of
Wow.
militant organizations in the world.
Well, it got an incredibly bad rub from
Yes.
one Timothy McVeigh.
Yeah, which that's a story. The guy was actually kicked out for being a neo-Nazi after 2 meetings. He never actually officially joined any militia in Michigan. Norm Olson has his words about that.
Well, but that did not stop the media.
Oh, no, of course not. Media's always going to smear people. Media's garbage, man. I've been in a whole bunch of mainstream media, interviews and shit like that. I think I can say there's been maybe 1 or 2, positive media interactions I've had. Well, most of my media interactions are positive when I go into them, and then it gets published, and it's like, well, look at this white supremacist. Go fuck yourself.
Well, and here's the thing too. A lot of people automatically assume, like with McVeigh or with Ruby Ridge, that people who are in a militia are usually some part of a white nationalist organization. So let's go ahead and dispel that rumor.
Well, it's not a rumor per se. I cannot speak to there not being any white nationalists in other militia organizations, but I know the Michigan militia. Let me put it to you this way: there is no one Michigan militia. However, when you Google Michigan militia, you're going to stumble across my militia first, because my group is one of the oldest runnings. We have had a web presence since there was the advent of the internet. So we are usually the first that people run across because of search engine optimization by default, because we're the oldest. So media comes to us quite often, quite frequently, looking to get an insider's perspective on the militia, which I know I'm more than willing to talk with the media on a lot of these things. There's other groups out there that have caused hell and havoc, I don't want to name names. I don't want to name other groups out there because
they just exist.
They exist. There are, of course, white nationalist militias out there. I know people who are in them. I've met them. Some of them are nice. Some of them are fucking crazy.
And some of them live in North Carolina.
Some of them, look, militias are everywhere. All right, you're gonna have militant organizations everywhere, even in California. I know of at least 2 organizations that operate out of the state of California. I'm not one of the most well-connected people, but I know more people. I know the right people. You know what I mean? I know people who can contact those people.
Well, so it's like my grandfather always said, you never have to have friends in high places. You just have them in the right places.
Yes, exactly. So, how do I get into the militia?
That was my question.
All right. No. I'm asking. I'm restating the question.
Okay.
For people.
I'm just being a smartass.
And me too. That's what I do. So, my earliest memory of knowing about SMVM particularly was when I was 7 years old. My buddy was on TV. My buddy now. He wasn't You know, I never knew him until, you know, much later in life. But one of my buddies, Mr. Lee Miracle, the coordinator of the Southeast Michigan Volunteer Militia, was on the TV doing an interview with, I want to say, local 4 or local 2 or some other news organization. And I remember asking my mom in the car, "Mommy, what's a militia?" My mother responds, "Just a bunch of crazy people out in the woods with guns." And I'm like, okay.
Sounds cool.
Sounds cool. And now, when I was doing For Liberty Fridays back in 2013, that was the height of my, you know, major activism, where I was going around talking with politicians and shit like that. This is I was approached by one guy who is no longer a part of our group because we're not extreme enough for him. We don't do all the special forces training and shit like that. It's like, look, come on. Anyway, this guy, he's like, "Hey man, you should join the militia." And I'm like, "Yeah, I remember hearing about these guys a few years ago. I might join." But I was in and out of, you know, going out of state every other week. You know, I like to travel a lot. I go lots of places. I've been back and forth to West Virginia maybe, I don't know, 10 times this year. Well, not 10 times, but, you know.
Wow.
I travel out of state frequently. This year alone, I've been to Chicago. I've been to, you know, West Virginia. I've been to, shit, where else?
Well, take a pass on
Wisconsin.
Ohio if you can.
Wow. I have to pass through there to get places.
Yeah, but, you know, Ohio is what we always call a drive-by state.
More or less, that's what
you really don't want to stop, and because there's really nothing there.
Let me get a smoke. Smoke going. Where's my lighter? Come on, lady.
Well, except for, you know, we do have the Wright Pat Air Force Museum.
Yep, and you also have Camp Perry, which is one of the largest shooting competition bases in the world. One of really, you got 1,000-yard known distance ranges. And hello, lady. What are you doing? I got it. Here, sweetheart.
Merc is a gay.
You're a gay.
Oh shit! You have the fucking camera on, you ding dong.
Yeah, I'm conducting an interview.
Well, I gotta go switch off thingies.
We'll go switch off thingies.
I really like
Hi,
shit,
Aiden.
so great. Good job, thank you.
I love you. Anyway, so
Ain't love grand?
Love's grand. Oh shit. So the Edward Snowden leaks happened, right? You know, we got mass surveillance within our own government, surveilling the population across the world. I'm hearing about Operation Eagle and all this other, what was it, Eagle? Vigilant Eagle or some shit like that, where they're fucking targeting veterans and people with subversive opinions. And, you know, we've got the Patriot Act going on, and just, I couldn't handle it anymore. I'm like, there's got to be some like-minded people out there who know what the hell's going on, who know how to combat this. And I'm not just talking about legally, or not, excuse me, I'm not just talking about physically, I mean legally. You know, people who are connected with the law, who know how to get into, you know, the politicians' ears to say, hey, this is wrong, this is unconstitutional, this is a violation of our Bill of Rights. Enter the Michigan militia. I find out that a lot of these guys are very heavily connected with, you know, within the political community. You know, and we got people who are in our group who are EMTs, who are, you know, people running for office themselves, people who are in office. And we've got people who are, you know, very CivNat minded, who are within these organizations. I've got friends of mine who are former law enforcement who are now part of the militia. A lot of veterans, a lot of people who went off to the military. And it's great. Like half the composition of the militia that I'm in are veterans. Like, and half of those people are combat veterans, people who have been in combat. not just sideliners like me, not like people who are just ordnance corps. I'm talking infantry, scout snipers, people who've put the work in. This one Vietnam vet who was a little bit too gung ho, but a really decent guy. He enjoyed being a foot slogger. So,
well, and the most important question I can ask at this juncture is why?
Why?
Yeah.
Well, I want to protect myself, my family, and my community against transgressions against their civil rights. Not just gun rights, but all civil rights.
And
right to a fair trial, right to a right to be secure in their possessions in their own homes, possessions and documents in their own homes, a right to not be spied upon, a right to not quarter soldiers in their houses, the Third Amendment. A lot of people forget about the Third Amendment. They don't give a shit because it's not wartime, but there's a lot of legal gray areas right now as well with the Third Amendment. A lot of people don't. Remember the Tsarnaev bombings over in, I want to say Maryland, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Tsarnaevs, it was the Boston Marathon bombing. Yeah. They had an entire town on lockdown, and they had law enforcement quartered in people's houses for a while there. Now, law enforcement isn't exactly a military force, but the line is being kind of muddied right now with the advent of a lot of military technology and military that's mostly radio shit, but military equipment such as MRAPs, mine-resistant ambush protected vehicles, being sold or given away to law enforcement agencies. The lines being blurred between law enforcement and soldier.
Well, the thing that really set me off about Boston Marathon, pardon the pun, was them doing house-to-house searches.
Oh yeah.
And people just basically they had men show up at their door with guns and badges, and they had no choice.
Right. Well, if you waive your rights, you waive your rights. But if you have no choice, that's something there's something wrong there. There's something wrong there. Now, looking back, I mean, if you allow that to happen, you can take legal recourse. You can sue these law enforcement agencies for violating your constitutional rights. I mean, that's a martial law scenario right there. That's literally a martial law scenario right there. And I don't want to talk about the whole martial law conspiracy theories and bullshit like that, but that literally is like a martial law scenario. It's like,
yeah, I mean,
the military cracks down.
I was watching it live, and I'm just like, they can't do this. Mm-hmm. This is completely against all of our rights. That they cannot do this.
Right. And if a law enforcement agency tried to knock on my door saying, "Hey, I'm looking for a guy who is suspected of a bombing in your house," I'd be like, I'm. You really think he's going to be in my house? Do you have any idea, like, how well I have the back? This place is memorized like the back of my hand. He's not going to be hiding under my bed. He's not going to be hiding in my attic. Trust me, he'd be dead by now.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things. Okay, so you think he's in the house? Can I see the warrant?
Yeah, where's your warrant? If you didn't have a warrant, come back with a warrant.
Yeah,
I'll comply then.
I'm very much into the fact that they set down some really, really good laws when they made this country, and there shouldn't be any reason why they abridge them, unless in complete time of governmental breakdown. Then after that, the rules don't apply anymore.
Funny you should mention that. Certain drafts of the Second Amendment state. First off, let me pull that up. Come on, where'd you go? No. Some of the first drafts of the Second Amendment stated shall not be abridged as opposed to shall not be infringed. So there's placements of commas and grammar and all this other shit, but early drafts stated shall not be abridged.
Yeah, but they didn't have spell checker back in the 1700s.
No, they really didn't. But it's still a masterfully crafted document.
Yeah, I think they
And
put in a lot of work on that, and I think it definitely should be respected because everybody in the world looks to the United States now.
oh yes,
Regardless of
absolutely.
how many people are like, "Oh no, the United States is horrible. It's awful." And it's like, is it? Is it really?
Yeah, I don't know. It's I'm it's hard to it's hard to say really. I mean, I'm just stuck with what it is.
Well,
Yeah.
and let's go through this a little bit because I think it bear it that it does bear some discussion, um, because a militia is not a replacement of the law. From everything
No, it is not.
that I have read, it's basically people who essentially read the amendments and said, okay, yeah, we have the right to carry, we have the right to protect.
We have the right to assemble as well,
Mm-hmm.
as per the First Amendment. Yes. Um, Also, there's a lot of stuff. It goes to the Tenth Amendment. The Tenth Amendment states that the powers not granted to the government shall be granted to the people. So there's a lot of laws out there that are not able to be upheld by the court system, or not the court system, but the law enforcement that we have full right to execute. So like it's like citizens arrest. Now I'm not saying that it's a vigilante organization. No, not at all. Militias aren't a vigilante organization. But it allows for people to take matters into their own hands as opposed to calling upon law enforcement. Now, something I've alluded to you in side chat of something we talked about earlier. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to be too specific, but I'd spoken with you about how I had recently been in contact with the FBI regarding some incidences that had occurred. Um, for the most part, I've been the one spearheading this investigation because there's a lot of stuff that the FBI can't do and they're not privy to. So I've been, kind of working with the FBI to gather information about the incident. So I've just been doing my thing behind my computer, whatever, and finding out the information that's necessary for me to report so that they can see through that justice is done.
Well,
That's kind of one of the things that the militia does as well. I mean, that's
well, would it be fair to classify the militia as active citizenry?
yes, active and engaged citizenry, absolutely. People who are, they have skin in the game. They take stock of their political landscape, their legal landscape, and they act accordingly.
And I asked that question specifically because I wanted to lead into the story about Flint.
Oh boy, Flint is still a clusterfuck, but nowhere near as bad as it is right now, or nowhere near as bad as it was back then.
Well,
Okay, Flint. Flint is. Oh boy, I don't even know where to begin with Flint. All I know is there are people out there that still don't have water, or clean drinking water. Um,
now you
I helped.
became active in this. Your militia became active in this, um, uh, and I don't want to go too much into it because it's your story, but
It's not my story. It's more Genesee County Volunteer Militia (GCVM). They are a sister unit of ours. They formed. There's a lot of lineage that happens in militia groups, right?
mhm.
Like there's like a family tree of militias. Like how can you trace your history back to this militia? What have you?
Sure.
GCVM was incorporated around a candidate for sheriff. Now he kind of not broke off, but like kind of formed his own unit because most of our unit doesn't operate up in GCVM, and plus he was former MMCW Michigan Militia Corps Wolverines, which has been reincorporated about 3 different times. I don't even know if GCVM is still an active group. the brush fires of liberty were set back in 2016 when just about every freaking group and their dog, incorporated. Or prior to that, but it's just they became more vocal during the election cycle. But the National Guard had pulled out of Flint because they no longer had the supplies and they couldn't just pay the guys just to hand water out. So they ran out of supplies, ran out of water filters. So what my organization did, that's not an organization, my unorganization, shall I say, what my group did was we teamed up with some people on, through the interwebs. We helped organize a water caravan. We've got several truckloads of water, and we were able to get that and distribute it to some of the families in need that were up there. We've done this several times. There was a lot of optics fuck up that had occurred because they said that we teamed up with Michael Moore, of all people.
What?
Yeah, Michael Moore was, he was like, well, we need more legislation to help, assist these people. It's like, it's such a legislative clusterfuck. It's more along the line of, reducing the legislation, cutting the red tape to be able to have the infrastructure worked on. It's just something that he didn't realize. But what we were at the time was a Band-Aid. We would help distribute water to families in need, and that's essentially what we did. We did everything, in uniform, and we do wear uniforms. They're not uniforms, but they're, what it is. We went out there and we distributed water to as many families as we could. We had, like I said, we had 2 truckloads of water. We had people from far south as Florida who were part of the caravan. But like the 2 major units, well, there are 3 major units that had come out there to assist. It was GCVM, SMVM, and Armed Patriots 3% Ohio. Those are the 3 major units that come up to assist in the distribution of water. And then that's what have we done? I have participated in 2 water drives, and I was part of a failed water drive that had occurred. It's just they couldn't get the resources together and available during the time. It's just, that happens. Sometimes plans fall through, but we did what we could just to get, after the National Guard pulled out because of safety reasons and for, the fact that they couldn't pay them. We went in and we distributed water. We had media attention for some reason. I don't know why. All we were doing was just, serving our communities. That's what the militia is there for. So,
well, and I think the story is infinitely important because it's not involving guys running around in the woods shooting guns, because that is the commonality of like every story. Like you sent me a few stories, and especially that Vice piece was just like that guy thought he was going to be killed and skinned at any moment.
Oh no, that guy, what, Ben McCoo? He was so disingenuous, dude.
Oh,
he acted like, oh, look at this, we're doing this really subversive thing with these crazy militia guys. It's like he was all into it. He was completely into it. He loved it. He thought it was so awesome. But then he ran the hit piece, and it's like, what the fuck, guy?
Well, he worked for
and
Vice,
you could also tell that he was trying to fish for negative reactions, try to paint us as white supremacists and shit like that, which was hilarious because I remember one time during that exercise, it's middle of winter, he comes up to me, he's like, hey, what if I told you I was gay? I'm like, good for you, buddy. You do you.
Be like,
hey, what if I told you this guy over here is my gay lover?
It's like
I wish you guys the best.
Yeah, it's like
what if I told you I found you attractive? Just like, well, thank you. I haven't had anybody throw me a bone in a while. What are you doing after this?
And
he didn't run that because he was expecting he was expecting me to like go on like some kind of homophobic rant, and I'm like, why?
It's like it's like does gay impair your ability to shoot straight?
Right. We have transgender members, for Christ's sakes.
Oh,
it's a community service group.
Daniel Russo asks in the chat, isn't a militia arrest kind of like a citizen's arrest?
It's exactly it. It's citizen's arrest. You follow the same rules, same laws, same everything. Citizen's arrest. That's all it really is.
Yeah, so one and the same.
Right. So if you were just a regular person, you weren't in a militia group, and you put somebody under the citizen's arrest, you're still technically. I mean, like I said earlier, every person is the militia. The whole body of the people of the United States are the militia. So we just take it a bit more seriously. That's all.
Well, I mean, you go back to the Civil War. Both sides were heavily populated by militias, and a lot of misconception that I've seen and that I've read is that people don't think that militias really existed until everything happened with, Ruby Ridge or Waco.
Oh, that's a load of shit.
Yeah.
Let's see. The Fort Ticonderoga incident. Oh, boy. General Ethan Allen. He, at the beginning of the advent of the Civil War, the British captured the fort in 1777. I want to say, no, it was before that. It was like the first major and opening battle of the Civil War. Fort Ticonderoga was stormed by General Ethan Allen and his Green Mountain Boys, the Vermont militia, and they were the first, major actors in the Civil War, or not Civil. Excuse me, God.
Revolutionary
War. Yeah. Fucking give me a minute.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people have a difficulty in assimilating the fact that there weren't sheriff's offices really. Speaking
of, that is actually the highest law enforcement agency in the land that is constitutionally recognized. The sheriff's office. So that's something important. That's something of import that people should know. That your sheriff overrides the police. You got sheriff, which is the shire reeve, and the police, which is the policy enforcers. Policy enforcer of your local town. So that's just a...
Yeah, and to be able to keep peace, especially in times of crisis, there wasn't that structure in place. So the militia served a very important role before industrialization. But people think that it essentially just sprung up after what happened with Ruby Ridge and what happened with Waco. Wait a minute. Oh. I am not hearing you. You are muted.
Whoops. There we go.
You are not muted anymore.
Militias have been around since time immemorial. Any group of, any band of armed citizens that are, not in direct control by a government agency is essentially a militia. A militia is just a word, right?
Well,
so it just means somebody who is armed and ready to take up arms to defend your community. That's just essentially what it is. Militia, that's all militiaman really is.
Well, and anytime I think of militia, I think of the phrase "for the people, by the people."
Exactly. It's exactly what we are. I mean, it's in the best sense of the word. Yeah, that's all it really is.
Yeah, and I know there's going to continue to be hit pieces because of the sensationalism that they can derive from it.
Well, you have to. There needs to be a delineation because there's a lot of political organizations out there that are armed, right? I really don't want to get into it about the Proud Boys because I can tell you that they fucked up. They made some mistakes, man. Yeah, it's all well and good. They're getting all this media. They're going out. They're beating the shit out of Antifa. Yeah, that's great. I fucking hate Antifa. That's. I think they're a bunch of fucking college kids that don't know what the hell they're doing. But at the same time, what they do is they monetize it. They go out and the first word of their organization, proud. That's what you shouldn't be. That's what you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be proud of what you do. You should keep your pride internalized. You know, don't monetize it. Don't go out and like brag about what you do. Don't go out and try to like what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, I don't know.
It's not something that should be merchandised, you know, and that's some of the things that I'm seeing. It's being merchandised, it's being franchised, it's like you're a political group at this point. You know, it's not you're not out there to you're out there to make a name for yourself, but you really shouldn't.
Well,
You know?
and Gavin McInnes, who has been recognized as like one of the founders of the Proud Boys, was the one who initially started Vice. So
Right.
he's basically into the publicity of it. And okay, now I know you saw all the crap that happened with UCLA.
Oh yeah.
You know, where the cops just basically pulled away. That they
Right. You shouldn't do any of this for notoriety, for fame, for publicity. It's you do what you do out of necessity, not out of a sense of acquiring some kind of glory.
well
It's something you do out of humility.
well and here's the thing that I wanted to ask. What if an active militia would have actually gone into UC Berkeley at the time when Antifa and the Proud Boys were mixing it up?
Well, we act as an interstitial barrier, right? We try our best to mitigate violence at any point.
Okay.
You don't go out there to crack skulls. You go out there to prevent skulls from being cracked.
And
That's how it's supposed to be.
yeah, I think essentially the people who are coming out who are representing alt-right were saying, please give us an excuse to commit violence.
Right, and that's incorrect. That's not the way it's supposed to be. The whole "give me an excuse" or I'll be your huckleberry, that kind of shit. That's not the mindset you need to have to go into what I do. You know, that's not the correct mindset to be. You know, this is my personal opinion. This is not the correct mindset that you want to have to go into the kind of volunteer work that I do.
Well,
Boy,
provide for the common defense, promote the general
Right.
welfare. You know, I think that was written down somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. I don't know where. It's one of those things. It could be in some kind of document that's in the National Library. I don't know.
Well, yeah,
Oh.
I think it's amazing how there's a lot of what I call FaceTime groups.
Mhm.
Those who want to be known, those who want to get national press, promote their agenda, but literally have no positive impact whatsoever. Because when Antifa sucks, we can pretty much agree that they're there to pick a fight, but they don't know why they're picking a fight. They just want to do it. And then you get people like the Proud Boys who are coming in saying, yes, please pick the fight because we want to kick your ass.
Right.
That does not promote anything positive. So both sides, and I've drawn fire for this, both sides are wrong.
I'm in agreement with you. I mean, now I've met some members of Antifa who do good work. I've met some members of the Proud Boys who do good work. They go out, they volunteer. You know, they help people in need. Everybody. One thing I've noticed is everybody wants to move towards a similar and same goal where they want to help people who are, you know, they not everybody, but there's a lot of people out there that want to reach the same goal but have a different process logic to reach said goal, right?
Yeah.
So, like, let's say I don't want somebody to be sick. What's going to help better? Getting somebody the money to hire a good doctor, or forcing a law to make sure this individual gets good health care?
Yeah. There's really not much grassroots nowadays.
No, there really isn't. There's a lot of astroturf out there. There's a lot of people who are moving into these kind of organizations with the incorrect intentions. There's Now, I've personally seen some people out there that really honestly believe that the militia is supposed to be an instigator of rebellion, who try to enter our groups. And I don't know if they're controlled opposition, or they're plants or feds or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's not the mindset that people should have. We are supposed to. We're supposed to have our legal recourses first. You have your soapbox, your ballot box, and then the cartridge box. And a lot of people seem to want to bypass the soapbox and bypass the cartridge box without having. They want to bypass the soapbox and bypass the ballot box without even ever trying to make an attempt at either. And people will tell you, go out and vote. That's wonderful. Go out and vote. Yeah, that's great. Today's election day, right? Today's the day you're supposed to cast your ballots. And well, I don't see any good candidates. I don't like these people, and I'm just voting for the lesser of two evils. What kind of sissy logic is that? What kind of crap is it? Why don't you go run for office then? You have the ability to do so.
Yeah, if people aren't saying the words that they believe will comfort, then it's time to make a change. I mean, the reason why I really like the movie Brewster's Millions, I don't know if you remember it.
I don't believe I've actually even heard of it.
Brewster's Millions stars Richard Pryor and John Candy, and this guy is given a goal that he has to spend millions of dollars and have nothing to show for it at the end of it. And then he inherits hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, in the subplot, he finds that there are two candidates running for office, and it's in Chicago, curiously enough, who he doesn't like either one of them. He slanders both of them and settles lawsuits and pays them off. But he actually becomes active and sets up a campaign to vote for none of the above. He's like, don't vote for these guys. They suck. And he spends all this money on a campaign, not for him to get elected, but to make sure that the populace of Chicago does not vote for either one of the two candidates.
Now, does he wind up getting elected?
No, he doesn't get elected, but he does win. They have to go to they have to go to a new vote and get new candidates because everybody votes none of the above.
Jeez. Well, that's the whole thing. And people think that they don't have the skill set out there to do these kinds of things, and it's
well, but have people over time, and I know this has happened more once they started passing, and this isn't a slam on equal rights or anything, but since the 60s and 70s, haven't they been taught more and more that their vote really doesn't matter, that you shouldn't have any type of interactivity, that when you do vote, that is the extent of your obligation as far as politics goes?
Yeah, that is a really weird thing. Yes, people have been taught over and over and over, your vote doesn't count, your vote doesn't matter. Your vote does matter, your vote does count. But if you really want to affect change, consider running on the platform of which you believe you're best qualified for. Now, when I ran for a precinct delegate, which is like an entry level. it's entry level politics, where it's essentially where you go to like town hall meetings and whatnot, to figure out what's going on.
So is it like a county rep?
Kind of, only smaller.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like it's smaller. It's smaller than that even. It's like you report to your county rep essentially. So it would have been entry level. I would have been able to get my foot in the door, and I'm probably going to be on the ballot again, or not back, but looking forward into 2020.
And you know, I'm going to ask why after this, right?
Civic duty. I mean, I feel like I'm qualified to, keep my fingers on the pulse of what's going on around me. Well, less so now than I was back in 2016 when I initially ran, but I knew everybody in my precinct. I knew my neighbors essentially. That's what the precinct was. I knew everybody in my neighborhood. I knew what their wants and needs were. I knew what their concerns were. So I was able to move forward and become a representative for them. So that's what I would do. I'd be their delegate. I'd be my community champion, essentially. That's what that was.
Town selectman is kind of what we call it around here.
Yeah, that's about right. That sounds about right. Town selectman.
Well, now it's town select person, But I think one of the things that we're finding a lot of misconception in, and that's being discouraged, is the fact to act within grassroots, to be able to push an agenda that you actually believe in, to have some type of, for lack of a better word, some type of morals to what you're doing. And it seems as though the government more and more discourages you to do that. Go ahead and vote for the guy with the best smile. Or maybe
vote for the guy who's going to take care of you. Vote for the guy who offers you his protection. Vote for the guy who says he's going to give you the nice new, he's going to cut your taxes and you're going to be living in the lap of luxury if only you voted for this guy. Nobody can do that for you. Nobody can but yourself.
Yeah, it simply does not exist.
Right.
Do you think that we would benefit from breaking the two-party system?
Oh yes, absolutely. Oh yeah, I usually vote for a lot of libertarian candidates for that reason. I follow their platform first to make sure that I know that these guys are within what I would consider to be a good platform. Like I voted heavily Republican this year on the ballot. With the exception of Prop 1 here in Michigan. That's more of a Democratic proposal, Prop 1.
Yeah.
But it's because you're adding a new product to the market, but they also want to tax the product as well. But I don't know. I don't know if it was even bipartisan or not, but it sounds like some of the Democrats have put forward.
Well, this is funny because Daniel brought up into the chat talking about Bernie versus Hillary, and theoretically, Bernie could have beat Trump.
It's funny. Back when I did the interview with German media, I had spoken briefly about what we're seeing as a polarization between the two parties. We're seeing a balkanization almost. And I had stated at the time, because I honestly thought that Bernie Sanders was going to be the front runner for the Democratic Party.
By the way, that was a good article.
Thank you. Well, actually, it was, it's what it was. It was just a little insight on what goes on in the militia. The translation's a bit off, but it's just what it is. But when I did the German media interview, I had stated that what you see here is, the balkanization between the forgotten middleman, or the forgotten. Sorry, I'm being a firebug. I like to burn things. No, I what I said was we've got the disenfranchised left versus the disenfranchised right. The disenfranchised left is going to rally behind Bernie Sanders, which most of them did. But Hillary Clinton kind of screwed over Bernie Sanders. Elizabeth Warren screwed over. No, it was Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Sorry, Debbie Wasserman Schultz fucked over Bernie Sanders.
Well, who was
that's a long story. I don't want to.
Who was the head of the DNC that when Iowa came back, when the results came back and they had been doctored, that she quit the DNC?
Yeah, that was it. That was her.
Okay.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I knew that Trump was going to be the front runner. I always knew he was. It's just because he has a long history of being, in opposition to whatever major power it was. He was always like a oppositional swing voter. He'd always thrown his weight behind, whichever one could do the most damage to whoever was currently in power. If he saw that individual was, running counter to the best of American interests. I believe that he was opposed to Bush, and I know for a fact he was definitely opposed to Obama, as I was.
Yeah.
I was opposed to both Bush and Obama, Bush Jr. and Obama. I sincerely hated Bush Jr. He was a neocon puppet. Obviously a very pro-war. I wouldn't go as far as to call him a chicken hawk, but his service record indicates such. I mean, he was the son of a president, and so he wasn't really, front lines.
Well, and, W had links to the CIA.
Exactly. I'm finding that politics is a sausage factory. It's very incestuous. You've got these secret societies. Everybody's like, oh, look at what the hell, Bohemian Grove and all this other shit. No, don't worry about Bohemian Grove. Don't worry about, Skull and Bones. Worry about the people in Bohemian Grove. Worry about the people in Skull and Bones. It's very incestuous secret societies. These things, these people, they get together and what they do, they talk politics. It's like the whole conspiracy theory of the Bilderberg Group and the Trilateral Commission. They're all working against each other, or they're all working with each other against your interests, and they're out there to rule the world. Partially true. But what you need to worry about is the backdoor deals that happens at these group meetings, between corporations and politicians. People are being sold out left and right. It's not like some crazy, satanic ritual cult, whatever the hell, Alex Jones is peddling. What people need to worry about is, unfair trade deals going through and, civil rights being slashed. And that's what most people need to worry about with these things. When you have connections with all these other organizations, you're going to use these connections to better your campaign, and you're going to become myopic. As a politician, you're going to become myopic. You're going to worry about your interests and your needs, not the needs of the people who come to you and tell you these things. They come to you and tell you, I have this problem. I have this problem in my community. I would like this problem in my community to be solved. Will government intervention help, or is there something that needs to happen at the grassroots to fix this?
Well,
the politician's always going to say, we can help you, if you give us money, taxes, essentially. We'll raise your taxes, we'll start an initiative. Sometimes these initiatives fall flat on their face. So, God, I'm losing my voice, man. I haven't talked like this for a while about this. I could probably go on for another 4 hours on this stuff.
Well, and I do find it fascinating because I've seen the power of grassroots actually work, but it really does seem collectively that the American people have kind of given up on it. They've embraced slacktivism.
That's the thing. There's a very heavy embrace of slacktivism. If you can, raise awareness. That's great to raise awareness all day. I was actually talking to Alt Hype about this briefly. I don't know him very well. More of a contact of my lady friend. But I talked about, how I was going to, come on the show and talk about, my time in the militia and everything I do and whatnot. But I said, being a rhetorician's great and everything. Raising awareness is great. But Yes, I'm aware we have a problem. Okay, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I mean that's like if you bring it to locally, you go to that one street that has that incredibly bad pothole, and if you come out every day and point at the pothole and go, God, this is a bad pothole.
Look at that pothole.
Yeah, that's a horrible pothole. Nothing gets done. You have to get active. Bug whoever your selectman is.
Right.
Go to the mayor
and go directly to the road commission. Say, hey, look, we got this issue right here. What are you going to do to fix it? Oh, well, we can't touch it. Okay, what can I do to make sure that you get to it? Well, you'd have to go to this person. Okay, all right, well, we're going to go to this person. Well, we can't do this without that. You see, what you do is you got to find the process of how to fix this thing. Raising awareness is great, but, you got to find the process to actually solve the problem. And like, if there's unnecessary steps, then those unnecessary steps to fix that problem should be handled,
Oh yeah, I mean there's always going to be gatekeepers to the people that can actually get shit done, which isn't what we were founded on.
Right.
I mean,
less gatekeepers. That's another good point.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where, okay, you have a representative. By the very nature of the word, they are supposed to be representing you, not whatever type of corporate interest is coming in. And I guess my wife called me a conservative hippie, and
that's essentially what I am, just with a shit ton of guns.
Only one, Ruger Security 6.
Beautiful. I have a GP 100. It's kind of a good replacement for the Security series.
I can't get away from a wheel gun.
Oh, I love wheel guns. I love wheel guns. They're we could have the gun discussion all day long.
Well, yeah, and for the people that are in the chat, let's have some ones in the chat if you've ever actually gone out and fired a gun, because I'll be interested in seeing that. Because I can say there's a lot of people out there that I've had conversations with who sincerely think guns are completely and totally evil, that they're the worst things in the world. And then I take them out to a gun range and they're just like, oh my God, I feel so empowered. And I was like, but you don't feel corrupted with the power, do you? And they're like, no, it just feels like I have some type of control.
Just another tool in your toolbox.
Yeah.
Another tool in your toolkit. That's all a gun is. My gun is just as important as my first aid kit. My first aid kit's just as important as my radio. My radio is just as important as my armor. My armor is just as important as my knowledge. And knowledge is just as important of it's what tells me, it's what informs me of what I should have.
Well, and like, just as important of the person next to you.
Oh yes, absolutely. No man is an island. As much as I hate to admit that, no one man can do it all. Everybody should have a prepper mentality, if you ask me. Everybody should stockpile food and clean water and have yourself a Mr. Buddy heater with a propane tank on it. Everybody should have one of these things, just in case you lose power in the middle of winter and you got nobody coming for you.
See,
get yourself one of those gas grills. You can just prop up in your kitchen if you lose power and gas, or if you're running like electric stove like I do, get yourself a gas grill.
See, I live in the ghetto, so power goes out all the time, and people are trying to convince me, oh, preppers are crazy, and I was like, have you ever been without power?
Right. Have you ever been without power? Have you ever been without clean drinking water? I got a picture on my phone. A while ago, we had a water main break, and you weren't able to drink the water for a solid week. Now I work at a grocery store. My shelves were empty for a day and a half. I got with my boss the night of, and I said, look, this is what needs to happen. You need to order 6 extra pallets of water for people to come in and just take out of the front out of the front. We're going to put these pallets right up front, right by the cash register, because you're going to have people coming from the Tri-County area to come and pick up water. So we need to have more water from the warehouse. That's the thing. Even my professional life, operating is just some freaking grocery schlepper. You're able to still serve your community by knowing the needs and wants of your community. So yeah.
Irate says, I love shooting pistols, rifles, AR-15s, AK-47, SKS-12s. My Mossberg is my home defense system.
That's a little too loud for me. Again, I like to keep it a little quiet.
Oh, I don't know, man. That 357 I have has quite a pop.
Oh yes, I love. I had Sargon behind my 357. He loved it. He loved all the guns he got to shoot, including that 50 cal. We had AK and AR, my 357, my 9mm.
Yeah, I don't know where you posted it, but I watched it.
Oh, he actually posted on his own channel, the Thinkery.
Yeah. See, I mean, now that's the kind of fun stuff. Plus, you guys have shown me some of the footage that you were doing for Aiden's documentary about the with the drone, and
yeah.
Honestly, I still think people would love to watch stuff like that. I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
you can be the YouTube creator that, not necessarily that you plan to be, but, right now, since YouTube has completely changed, you can be anything you want and present anything, because we know that the people who are still here, that are sticking around or that are starting, are not doing it for the money, because the money sure as hell ain't there.
No, it really isn't anymore. And it's kind of, I kind of had the feeling that I wanted to do it as a hobby initially. I thought to myself, what can I do as a hobby? Fly my drone around, maybe do some light narration, whatnot. Talk about mission history, talk about some of my times in the militia, do all this fun stuff. But I've just never been able to cogitate my thoughts, just get my ducks in a row about it. And then, the community drama from both the communities I was involved in, just like, is this really worth it? Is this really worth it? Is it worth me catching flack for having the wrong opinion or saying the wrong thing? And it's like, there's a toxicity there. And, as much as I hate saying, using the left's words to describe things, there's definitely a toxicity there, and it's just not my. I suppose I can get involved still, but I just at this time right now, I got to focus on me. I got to focus on getting my ducks in a row here. I still haven't moved her completely in. We have all of her stuff. It just needs to be organized.
Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, I'll say that Wifey and I have been together. Me and Nurse Wicked have been together for 10 years. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary. And
well, congratulations.
Thank you. And we met online. Now, this is kind of veering off a little bit, but did you have any trepidation about because technically at that time it was a long distance relationship?
Do I have any trepidation?
Yeah.
That's actually hard to. So I've known her for a while before I started dating her. I honestly didn't think she was my type. I really didn't. Then
what was the
whole situation?
What was the hesitation though for the not being the type?
It's gonna sound weird. She's way too smart for me. And I'm worried about that. There's in my mind, at least, there's a disparity between my level of intelligence and her level of intelligence.
Oh, dude, I said it.
Then there's what's that?
I said it right up front when I first interviewed her. I'm like, listen, let's just take this as granted. I understand that you're smarter than me, so you might have to dumb some shit down. and she was very
Outside.
forthcoming. She didn't do the eye roll or the oh God, I got to explain this, because I said right up front, I don't know it, so we might have to backtrack on some things.
It's actually kind of funny, because she does her channel. She presents, a very, I'm not going to say it's a front, but she presents, her wheelhouse, of which she's very incredibly skilled at, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she's just a regular person like you or me. It's just it's actually rather nice. Like it's one of the things is it's really funny. Like, she doesn't talk too much about like her own herself. She does talk a little bit about her private life and whatnot, but like you don't really get that kind of personal feel for her off of her channel. Like, one thing that I had no idea about, the woman is an excellent cook. Like, she's pulling shit out of her ass that I've only seen in like 5-star restaurants. Boy, does she love to cook, and she's good at it. It's like something she doesn't really talk about. She says, "Yeah, I'm gonna go cook this thing," like on Twitter, like once or twice, and I'm like, "Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, let's do that." But then she comes into my life, and it's just like, wow, okay, so we're going to make this thing. It's going to be completely gourmet. It's going to be wonderful. It's like, Jesus Christ, why don't you run a cooking channel for?
Oh, there you go. You can do drone passes over the oven.
Over the oven, yes. No, I got the GoPros for that. I've got some stock footage I've been like dicking around with, maybe thinking about doing, maybe like just a day in the life of, it's really interesting. I mean,
well, and
we take for granted some like the regular shit that we do every day. It's interesting to some people,
Well, and from what you were saying, you've made this official too.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Like very official. Yeah, we're engaged.
And I think that's awesome.
To be honest with you, man, I've never clicked with somebody like I've clicked with her. Like, I've been through a lot of shitty relationships in my life. Like, I don't even want to go into detail with some of these women I've been with. Like, I've been abused. I have been cheated on. I have been treated like absolute shit, taken for granted. I've never met a woman who's more grateful and just supportive. And it's so odd because some of like the things that are said about her is just so contrary to just the way she is. Like, you look at some of her detractors out there, and it's just like, you're talking about fiction at this point, because this is not the way she is. It's to the point where I'm thinking that some of these people that go after her are mentally ill.
Well, and I'll just briefly gloss on this: the bullshit that they were putting up with Kiwi Farms.
Oh God, it's all bullshit. There's no truth to any of it.
Yeah, it's just amazing, and I can see why you would back away from being a content creator. I mean, I've even said from word one, if anybody actually had the ambition to dox me, it would have been done a long time ago. But
it's funny because I'm a public figure. When people say they talk about, well, I'm going to dox you or all this other shit, it's like, dude, my docs are out there. Like, I'm actually rather well known.
Well, and it's kind of funny because, yeah, your name was in the articles that you sent me, but I come from a wrestling background, so independent wrestling, it's whatever I learned your name as with the gimmick, that's what I still go with. So I'm not using your real name. I'm still saying Merc, just because it's something that I'm comfortable with.
Well, yeah, I mean, Merc is just my call sign. I mean, you can call me Chris, you can call me whatever. It's just, it's like my friends call me Merc. That's the thing. Like, when I go over to my buddy Fohammer, I'm not gonna say his real name because anyway, whenever I go to his place, it's my name is Merc for that day because I chill with I chill with him, and he knows me as Merc. I mean, that's how he's like, so what's your handle? And I'm like, well, I'm Merc. So
Yeah,
but you know,
my best and longest friends still call me Griff. I mean,
right.
that's just the deal. I mean, people know my real name. It's out there. It's been around. Hell, I've even been called by my name on some of the streams that I've done, and
Yeah.
they're just like, "Oops," and I'm like, "I don't give a shit." You know,
Yeah.
what are they gonna do? Make me poorer? Seriously?
Good luck. I work a shit job.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a shit job. I mean, like it pays the bills. I mean, I have a house of my own.
Well,
But you know, it's
well. The funny thing is I sincerely live in a ghetto. The cops do not want to come down here unless there's a body that they need to tag.
yeah, same with fucking Detroit, man.
Oh.
I don't live in Detroit.
No, no,
I live close enough.
no. Detroit's bad. I mean, I saw the one special that they had with gangs and bears
Oh Christ, yeah.
because so
Yeah.
many people have vacated Detroit that now the actual wildlife is starting to show up. And,
yeah.
and they showed a picture of a big fucking brown bear walking down the street.
You got wild dogs. You got deer. You got all this shit down in Detroit. And it's like, what's the DNR doing about it? Nothing, because they can't do anything about it. It's weird. That's another thing we gotta do. We gotta get more precinct delegates out there. Figure out how the hell are we gonna deal with this population of wild dogs? Just packs of wild dogs.
Well, I think.
This isn't India. People don't shit in the streets, but we certainly have wild dogs now.
Well, I think.
What the fuck?
I think Detroit's just waiting for the RoboCop future to come in, so Omni consumer products can just take and retool everything.
we got a statue of RoboCop, but we don't have the real thing.
Yeah. I
Oh, shit.
I thought that was pretty funny, and the thing about it, I had read an article like 2 years after they had put it up, and people are as respectful to the RoboCop statue as they are to the Rocky statue in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, jeez.
It's like, you don't diss RoboCop, and it's like, you realize RoboCop was fake though, right?
It's the ideals that RoboCop represents: truth, justice, the American way. You don't diss it.
It would be nice to put a couple of Ed 209s there out on the street though.
I don't know about that.
Well, they can't
Oh,
handle
shit.
stairs, so yeah, there's the design flaw. Now, I did want to make sure and ask too, because I think this is an important question definitely for the people out in the audience that still might not have might have a reservation about guns. Is there something that you would recommend to them that would be, well, let's just say safe and effective, something that's not going to be overimposing, something that's, because I know a lot of people in their brains either have like, somebody opening up with an AR-15, or they're seeing, Dirty Harry's 44 mag.
Right.
It
Well, you want an impression of Baby's first handgun?
oh, yeah.
Burst of Thunder 380. It's got more safeties on it than you know what to do with. It's got a mag drop safety. It's got a frame safety, frame lock, that is. It's got a mechanical safety. I don't know if it has a trigger safety. I can't remember. But it's not overpowered. It's a 380. So you're going to want to run critical defense loads. Otherwise, you're just going to be pissing people off.
Now, of course, for people who don't know, critical defense loads.
Critical defense loads. Well, critical defense loads are essentially hollow points that have a reactive tip in them. It's kind of like a polymer tip. It's like rubber eraser in there. Causes greater expansion.
Are those more effective than Kevlar's?
Oh, you mean like Black Talons?
Oh no, Talons are just shredders, but
Just average hollow points.
My brother carries Kevlar tips.
I have never seen a Kevlar tip bullet.
Yeah. So.
You mean Teflon tip?
No, Kevlar. It's got it's like a hollow point with Kevlar in it.
I've never heard of that. I've seen some wild shit. I mean, I'm sure they exist. I've never heard of Kevlar tip bullets. I don't know. I'll take a look.
Yeah,
at
he's
that.
got it set with his mag is set up on his Glock with he's got it set up into thirds. So the first set is the Kevlar, the second set is the hollow point, the third set is the Talons.
Okay.
So
Talons are hard to find, but not really. I mean, the Winchester makes the SXZ series is essentially just it's like the new iteration of the Black Talon.
Well,
it's something that reduces the friction between the barrel, and they say it reduces the friction to bulletproof vests, but
well,
remains to be seen in testing.
Well, he used to carry porcelain tips.
Porcelain tips? I wouldn't trust that, because I think the shock from the bullet accelerating down the barrel, the vibrations would probably shatter it.
Well, he said that was kind of a stopping bullet, not a killing bullet, but he didn't like it because of the unpredictability of it.
Well, the thing is about hollow points, what they do is they dump all the energy into whatever mass you're shooting it into. That's what they do. They expand and dump all the kinetic energy into the target, as opposed to passing through the target like a standard Full Metal Jacket bullet. Oh, jeez. Oh, what time is it?
We're at 10:30. So if you
10:30.
If you did want to bring this to an end, we certainly can do that.
All right, yeah. If you ever want to have me on again, I mean, I'm more than willing to, go. I could go on for hours about just about any topic you think of. But
well, the door is always open for the IRS.
Oh yes, absolutely. Usually, I'd be able. I even called in from work before, but I'm going to take some time, maybe on one of my days off. I know I've got tomorrow night off. I'm going to a concert. I'm going to get lit and turn into a human cannonball in the mosh pit. Maybe get fucked up a little bit.
What's the concert?
Who knows? Oh, I'm going to Behemoth over at Fox Theater. I can't remember. My buddy's taking me, but I'm going to get hammered and just throw myself around a bit.
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
I'm off Friday night, too. I don't have any plans necessarily on Friday night. I'm going to get I know she's probably going to be cooking me a big dinner, as she does, But yeah, I'm probably going to hop off here, check on her, and then probably take a nap before work, because I got to work tonight. That's going to be fun.
Well, and just as the close, some information, one point of detail that you would like to share with the audience.
I really can't think of much, but just try to be a good person. Follow old Google's example. Don't be evil.
Do good.
Do good. Help your community.
I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and close out with my other spiels here. If you can hang on for just a second. And just to let you know what's coming up. There we go. The deal for November. Coming up next week, we have adult film actress and legend in the erotic industry, Ginger Lynn Allen, will be here. The week after that, we're going to be talking with the guys from Random Encounters. They are YouTubers who, what they do is essentially they take video games and break them down into 5-minute musicals. They're incredibly hilarious and a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. And then, of course, we have the creator and runner of the No Sleep podcast to round out the month, Mr. David Cummings. And we're going to be talking a lot of horror. And also talking about what it takes to actually keep a podcast running. And Yeah, that's gonna be a really fun conversation. And let's go ahead and pull this. Ooh, I'm trying to be fancy. And if you're up, the IRS, the Insomnia Ramble Stream, happens. I think we figured out that the 2 days that we're going to be taking off are going to end up to be Sunday morning and Monday morning. So I'm prepped and bright-tailed and bushy-eyed to do this show for you. But hopefully, Cadunt's traveling is done, and Insomnia Ramble Stream is exactly what it says, and you have no idea who's going to show up. We kind of call it the crossroads of YouTube, because anybody and everybody has the availability to show up, and we do bring some interesting guests on air. We've only been running for about a month, and we've pretty much had over 4 dozen different people on talking about everything, unless it's Cadunt, and then we talk about sex. But besides that, I think we can go ahead and round this out. We can go ahead and get this closed. So, I would like to thank my guest this evening, RTL Merc. Chris, thank you very much for being on. Yeah, you're welcome back anytime that we can get you squeezed in, and certainly appreciate you coming out tonight. We also appreciate the audience. You guys have been great. Thank you very much for your time and your interactivity, and we look forward to talking with you next week. So, from myself, DocGriffon, thank you very much, and the doctor's office is closed. If I can get to the button. There we go.